Good evening, fellow Doctor Who subscribers and non-subscribers alike. This morning I would like to talk about my reaction to the Doctor Who Series 12 finale, The Timeless Children, which involves a theory I have, or rather the Radio Times has, about the Morbius Doctors. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So, what was my initial reaction to The Timeless Children? Well, to be completely honest with you, I was not expecting so much to happen in the 70 minutes that was given to the time slot. I know they said 60 minutes, it was an hour. It was an hour and 5 minutes as stated on the Doctor Who website, but then I looked on Twitter and they said it was 70 minutes for a little bit extra of something else related to Doctor Who. Presumably that was all the indents and whatnot. So much of what we wanted answered between Series 11 and Series 12 was answered, and so much was left unanswered, which I'll get to later on in this review. So we now have new versions of the Time Lords by means of Cybermen. So with the Master confirmed for the finale, it was revealed that he now has a Gallifreyan cyber army at his disposal. What could this mean for the Doctor and her set of companions now that he has full control over a brand new Cyberman army that can, when killed, regenerate using Time Lord energy? I guess more of that story will be explored in the next series, or possibly in the festive special coming out this year. Just a side note, I will be talking a little bit about characters and the Irish subplot seen in last week's episode at some point in this review, so do bear with me. Talking about the big plot point for this episode, well, not really a plot point, but it kind of confirms a lot of things. This is taken directly from the Radio Times website, which I will leave a link to in the description. I'll admit that I had to do some research for this, as I'm not entirely up to scratch with canon Doctor Who and how it works, but it turns out that the Morbius Doctor links back to a Tom Baker story from 1976, and in that story the Doctor engages in a mind-bending contest with the criminal Morbius using an advanced apparatus to engage in a little battle of wits. As he struggles against the power of Morbius, the machine displays the 8 faces As he struggles against the power of Morbius, the machine displays the Doctor's then that of his previous incarnations, being John Pertwee, Hartnell and Patrick Troughton. The 8 faces are actually belonged to script editor and brain of Morbius Robert Holmes, Doctor Who's unit manager George Gallico, production assistant Graeme Harper, director Douglas Camfield, production assistant Christopher Baker, and writer Robert Banks. with director Christopher Barry and Hinchcliffe himself. Now, I didn't know that before going into the episode. In fact, I wasn't entirely sure with how the canonized Doctor Who universe works, or worked up until this point. But I guess I'll have to watch a little bit more classic. I'll have to start watching Classic Who in order to get a better understanding of what it is and what has led us to this point. This idea of multiple doctors existing pre-Hartnell was difficult to integrate into Doctor Who canon after the Deadly Assassin established that the Time Lords were limited to 12 regenerations. But where does that leave could Ruth's Doctor be the Doctor could Ruth's Doctor be William Hartnell's Doctor, just in a different time stream? Or could it be that this Doctor, the Ruth Doctor, is just basically what I'm trying to say is, now that we know the confirmation of the Morbius Doctors and the fact that the Doctor herself, the current incarnation of the Doctor, is the Timeless Child, and the fact that she was experimented on using regeneration energy, where does that leave Ruth's Doctor in terms of canonized Doctor Who? Like, where does she fit into the whole Doctor Who timeline of each Doctor? Because obviously we have Hartnell, we have Troughton, we have Pertwee, Baker, Davison, McCoy, McGann, John Hurt, Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi. I'm going to say Ruth's Doctor and then Jodie Whittaker, but I'm not exactly sure where that fits in. Excuse me, sorry. Hopefully, with this special rumoured for 2020 or 2021, hopefully the special will give us more of an idea as to where Ruth's Doctor fits in to the overall chronological timeline of the Doctor Who universe. Or she just could be a complete standalone Doctor that was an incarnation between Hartnell and Troughton, but we just didn't know of it yet. So we still had William Hartnell as the first Doctor, but somewhere in his timeline Ruth's Doctor fits into it without us knowing, and then it just glances over the fact that Ruth's Doctor's there and goes straight into Troughton as the second Doctor. So maybe that's what they're doing, and I hope we kind of get a little bit more answers to the Morbius Doctor and the fact that Ruth's Doctor is, I'm going to say, the Doctor before Hartnell, but we all know that William Hartnell is still the first Doctor, because that's the Doctor that we started off with in 1963 and continue to do so to this day. So for that reason, I'm going to talk about the Irish subplot that we saw in last week's episode. So initially when I was sitting down and watching this episode, There was a mention of Brendan in this week's episode. I think there was a flashback to it somewhere. I'll have to watch it again to make sure, but I'm pretty certain. Initially, when I sat down and watched it, I thought Brendan was another kind of version of Captain Jack. Obviously, Captain Jack was not in this episode, but Ruth's doctor was, and I was surprised to see her in there, because I thought we'd only get maybe episode 5, and that was it. That was her established, nothing else. But I thought Brendan was another version of Captain Jack when he fell off the cliffs, and then obviously didn't regenerate, but woke back up again as if everything was normal. Normally, when a Time Lord does that, falls off or dies, they regenerate into another incarnation. Brendan didn't do that, so that led me to believe that, oh, Brendan, this Irish chap, is another version of Captain Jack, just ginger and a policeman. And obviously, with a vortex manipulator, it's entirely possible that he works for a unit which is outside the police, beyond the government. So yeah, that's what my initial thought was. Obviously, that wasn't true, and Brendan is now believed to have been part of the Time Lord race, the Gallifreyans, without ever there being a hint to it. Although I think it was hinted at towards the last 5 minutes of last week's episode as well. So that cleared up. Talking about the characters, there was an element of this episode where, I don't know, Graham kind of spilled his heart out to Yaz, saying that Yaz is like the best thing to ever happen to the Doctor, and she's fantastic for doing that, and kind of making the Doctor open up to the companions about, excuse me, I'm really sorry, about her past, and trying to get the Doctor to open up a little bit more. To be honest, I thought one of the companions was going to die, and I thought Graham was going to go on his way out, considering he gave the big long kind of emotional, almost like a send-off speech to Yaz, and I'll admit I almost cried. There was a certain element of emotions raised this week. I did actually think we were going to lose Graham. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a few standout moments in this week's episode. One being the fact that they all go to Gallifrey together and try to find the Doctor from saving her from the Master and his overlord of cyber Gallifreyans. One moment that stood out to me on Gallifrey was the fact with the bomb, and then Ryan, considering he said that he had such a bad shot, threw the bomb and then blew up an entire race, well, a cluster of Cybermen, and then to blow them up and then to be shot at with a whole line of Cybermen behind him was just really funny, and it was one of the ones that actually made me laugh slightly. And then him going on, oh, I did that, and oh, this is fantastic, I blew up the Cybermen, and then to be directly shot by a Cyberman, by a whole line of Cybermen himself, and then to be dug down, I thought was fantastic and very funny. So there are some light-hearted elements to this week's episode apart from the high, intense emotions. Yeah, on another note as well, all the characters did very well. Yaz and Graham and Ryan. I think Graham, I don't know, Bradley Walsh and Graham just work so well together as an actor and both as a persona for character for Doctor Who, that you almost don't want to lose Graham, because it kind of feels like he's one of the main companions holding the show together. Yaz was fantastic, Graham was hilarious as always, and Ryan was just funny, you know. Companions don't need to be doing stuff all the time, they just need to be doing so much that they're involved a little bit in the episode, which is exactly what this was. They got the balance of emotion and hysteria as well as action packed. So a lot of stuff to process this week, but executed very well. And I think that's it. The only thing that's left to do is to give it a rating. Now I said earlier that I wouldn't give it a rating unless I've seen last week's and this week's episode, but considering this week's episode was about 65-70 minutes long, I think it's an episode worthy of a standalone rating. And then I'll do Doctor Who Year in Review Series 12 later on in the week or a few weeks time, where I'll give overall ratings of the many different episodes. This week's episode gets an above average rating, which is, I'm probably going to go and give it 20 out of 20, mainly because of the hysteria, the action, the emotion, and the special effects, and the fact that we now have a cyber race of Gallifreyans, which I think is a genius idea, and it is something that has never been done before, and it is very well executed. So with that said, thank you very much for watching my review of Doctor Who Series 12 Episode 10, The Timeless Children. I'll be back later in the year with a brand new Doctor Who review, of which I cannot reveal yet because some people have not seen the episode. So if you have not seen the episode, please do so now and then come back here and watch the review later. But until then, if you like this video, please like the video, share it on social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and whatnot. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and I'll see you in a few days with more, and possibly another follow-up video to this, although I don't really know how you can follow this up because it was such a good finale. But anyway, if you liked it, click subscribe, view a few of these playlists for me, and let me know what you thought of the episode down below in the comments, and I'll be sure to read as many of them as possible. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.